Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, I'm going to look at the homeschool laws of the U.S. territories and protectorates and basically anything that's not considered a state. So I'm just going to cover this small group rather than whether it's complicated or not, or whether there's laws or not, just because there's a small group here and I'm changing websites. Before this, I was using a Time for Learning, which was a curriculum website, but it did provide secular information without links to the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, which, as I will mention multiple times, are an alt-right, very Christian, very crazy organization that's main goal is to eliminate homeschool law at all. So, because they're crazy and they don't want any regulation whatsoever. So, we're going to look at using homeschoolfacts.com. That's where I'm getting this information. It does also provide information on these states. So let's look at DC. So homeschool laws in the District of Columbia. So let us see here. Yeah, it does look like in the District of Columbia, a homeschooling program does look like let's see. Yes, you must inform the department, the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. So it does look like you have to inform them. So let's do a double check. Yeah, so they are reporting and attendance laws. So you have to send in paperwork to let them know you are in fact homeschooling. They insist you educate children in language arts, mathematics, science, social studies, art, music, health, and physical education. Pretty standard throughout most of the U.S. So let's see. That's pretty much looks like you just have to send in paperwork. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, they have to have a high school diploma, which isn't really unusual. Or if they don't have a high school diploma, they have to fill out a petition to the superintendent in order to homeschool. And let's see. Yeah, you have a notification of intent to homeschool before you start. That includes the parent or legal guardian's consent to the requirements of the, looks like Chapter 52 of the district's homeschooling regulations. Must submit to the officer superintendent a yearly paperwork no later than August 15th and at least 15 days before the start of the home instruction, so not including Saturdays and Sundays or district holidays, and identify each child being homeschooled. So that looks like it. So yeah, basically it's a registration state, as what I would call it. So that is the DC. So let's move on to America's Samoa. So let's see here. Let us see. So it looks like this is one of those weird states. There's a bunch of paperwork. So in American Samoa, to homeschool, you're considered a private school. So you have to file a paperwork involving that. So you have to provide a statement in the aims and purposes of the school, name and addresses of the sponsors and supporters of the school, ages, grades, and sex of each child enrolled in the school, amount of tuition to be charged, if any, a listing and summary of the curriculum to be used in the private homeschool. So the materials and curriculum must be included. So I do not know how unschoolers get around this. I'm sure they find a way. So private and homeschools in American Samoa must be in session the same number of days as public schools, but are not required to use the same school year dates or class attendance times. They're required every year to submit monthly enrollment numbers, annual school year calendar, an annual list of all teachers showing names, ages, experience, and professional qualifications, an annual certification of health for each teacher, an annual class schedule, and permanent record cards for each pupil. So this is similar to our more content-heavy states. So there's a lot of regulation here. So that is it. But again, that's enough. That's basically you're registering as a school. But that is America's Samoa. So moving on to Guam. So hopefully you can't hear the mewing in the background. We have 2 black kittens who are still in quarantine for another week because they have ringworm. they should be being released soon, and I will show them on screen at some point because they're cute. We also have a Siamese kitten who's about 5 weeks old at the time. He's very, very small right now and possibly mewing. But moving on to Guam homeschool laws. So let's see. Guam's Department of Education bases its compulsory education regulation on section 6109 of the Guam Code, annotated children not attending a private full-time school and who are being instructed in the study and recreation of at least 3 hours a day for 170 days each calendar year by a private tutor or other person in several branches of study required to be taught in public schools of this territory and in the English language. So these guys will be exempt from attending public school. So you have to do registration. So let's see. Actually I'm wrong. Homeschooling children are not required to report to the school district or any government office. So homeschooling Guam falls under private tutoring policy that requires instructions in subjects typically taught in public schools. And in order to begin, you do have to form your local school that you will be homeschooling their child and will be withdrawing from the public school. So you do have to inform them if your child's been in school, or possibly even if you haven't started school and they're expecting you. So it doesn't look like standardized testing is required. So it's one of those states where there's not really any registration required, but you do have to inform the public school that you're planning on homeschooling. So that is Guam for you. Next on is the Northern Mariana Islands. So let us see. So it looks like home study programs must meet with Commonwealth curriculum and performance standards, and the following provisions will be applied for all approved home studying programs. So this is a application heavy. So an application for home study shall be submitted to the commissioner no later than 60 days prior to the beginning of the school year. No one will be excused from attending a public or non-public school unless the commissioner has granted a waiver. The following information must be accompanied the application: name, address, telephone number of parents and student or tutor, justification for the home study program, auspice under which the home study will operate and curriculum will be taught, description and qualifications of parent, instructor, or tutor, and for any hired tutor, police clearance for the past 3 years, dates and hours of instructions, negative active tuberculosis records for any hired tutor, and any other pertinent and necessary information as required by the commissioner. The tuberculosis thing I'd have to look up. I'm guessing it's prevalent in the islands, so this is Northern Mariana Islands. Oddly enough, there is a vaccine for tuberculosis. I found this out before. When I was overseas, we actually were told not to drink raw milk because you can get tuberculosis from that. We were frequently TB tested. So that is kind of interesting. So let's see. Limitations related to home study. A waiver granted to home study based on meeting the requirements of the commissioner. So you have to get permission. Parents and guardians must report in writing to the commissioner on any change in the home study program within 5 days. Interesting. Term of home study is for 1 school year. The commissioner may, however, suspend, revoke the waiver if the holder violates the terms of the application or relevant administrative code. So they are, I'm guessing, the Northern Mariana Islands are not homeschool friendly. I don't think Samoa's either. Not really unusual considering these are tropical islands that are very far from the continental US. So yeah, there's a bunch of paperwork. So not fun in the Northern Mariana Islands. Let's move on to Puerto Rico. I'm almost done here. Here we go. So let's see. Puerto Rico doesn't really have any homeschool statutes. So the Constitution of Puerto Rico does state everyone has a right to an education directed in the full development of his personality to the strength and respect of human rights and fundamental freedoms. So looks like they have compulsory education laws, no specific homeschool laws. So let's see, is there anything else? You have to teach as long as all the public schools. Nope. No certification. They are non-government schools. Homeschools in Puerto Rico are not recognized or regulated by law. So this is one of those that does not have laws, so you are required to teach your children. So that's Puerto Rico. And last but not least, the U.S. Virgin Islands. So public schools in the U.S. Virgin Islands are managed by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Education and are available on St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Let's see, there are apparently no schools on the Walter Islands. And let's see, there's no specific homeschool statute on the U.S. Virgin Islands. So let's see. Homeschool parents in the U.S. There's no requirement for qualifications. If a tutor is used, there is a little bit different because they must seek Commissioner of Education's approval of the tutor's qualifications. So let's see. Standardized testing for homeschool is not required, though the Commissioner of Education may require that the pupils be examined by a representative of the Virgin Islands. And there's no statutory regulation or authority that directly specifies a required number of days for homeschooling. So there looks like there's pretty basic registration. Essentially, you don't have to register, but they can come looking for you and they may check on you, essentially. So oh no, they do, never mind. Further down here, you do have to send a letter of intent, which makes sense if they're checking up on you. So you send a letter of intent that you will be homeschooling every year. And yeah, you acknowledge the full responsibility of educating your child, and you have to basically wait for a receipt that they acknowledge they got your information. So that is the U.S. Virgin Islands. And that is it for pretty much all of the United States and its territories. So again, it is legal to homeschool everywhere in the United States, but some places make it more difficult than others. So this information again was obtained through homeschoolfacts.com. I will link that in the description below. It does cover the U.S. states as well. I just use a different website because that's what came up first. And again, these are secular, as far as I can tell. They're not religious. This is a secular homeschool channel. I am not religious. I try to avoid religious programs like the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, which is alt-right, crazy Christians who want no regulation at all. So they're a little crazy. I would consider them almost a borderline terrorist organization, and with the homegrown terrorist groups that are ranting and raving because they are that crazy and that Christian. So, but again, this is secular information as best as I can give you. I am not an education specialist. I'm not a lawyer. Check with your state. Hopefully that goes without saying. Always check with people who homeschool in your state, in your county. I'm not an expert. This is pretty much what I'm getting off my research on the internet. So that's it for this video. If you want to see my other videos, you can check them out. You want to see my book reviews or hopefully my travel reviews, which are coming up at some point, like and subscribe. Thank you.